Winter slowly melted into spring. The icicles hanging from rooftops dripped under the pale warmth of a rising sun. Patches of green returned to the world, and little bursts of color began poking out from flower beds. Birds chirped in the early mornings, and sunlight lasted longer into the evening. For Benny, it was another season of firsts. His first spring breeze that didn't bite at his fur. His first walk through soft grass, instead of frostbitten sidewalks. His first time chasing butterflies across the yard. Head tilted in curiosity when they vanished into the air like magic. But more than the weather, what changed the most was Benny's heart. He no longer flinched at sudden noises. He no longer froze at outstretched hands. He no longer looked over his shoulder, expecting someone cruel to return. He was home. And home, he had learned, meant forever. Ava was growing too. Her once short hair now touched her shoulders, and her voice, though still soft, carried more confidence. At school, she was part of the Animal Kindness Club. Her story about Benny had been published in the local paper and read aloud at 3 different schools, but none of that changed how she treated Benny. To her, he was still her best friend, still the puppy she found trembling in the rain, crying from hunger and too tired to bark. Still her Benny. One afternoon, Ava sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by art supplies. Crayons, markers, glue, and glitter were scattered in happy chaos. Benny was asleep nearby, using her slipper as a pillow. She was working on something special. A scrapbook. Each page held a memory. The first day she brought Benny home. His first bath, and how wet the whole bathroom had gotten. His first snow day, birthday party, and even the day he barked at the vacuum for the first time. But the last page was still blank. At the top, Ava had written in large letters, "Forever means always." She stared at the page for a long time. What did always look like? After a moment, she smiled and began to draw. Her and Benny older. Side by side, still together, still smiling, still home, that night. As rain gently tapped the windows, Ava lay in bed with Benny curled up beside her. His breathing was slow and steady. She ran her fingers through his fur, whispering softly, "Do you remember when I found you?" Benny blinked, as if trying. She giggled. "You looked like a muddy mop, and you cried so much." He licked her hand like he understood every word. "You don't cry anymore," she said, "because you're not alone." And neither was she. The next morning, the phone rang. Mia picked it up, then called Ava into the living room. "Sweetheart, that was Sunridge Animal Rescue." Ava tilted her head. "Did something happen?" "They're opening a new shelter," Mia said. "A bigger one with more space for animals like Benny." Ava's eyes widened, and they asked, Mia added, "if you'd like to come speak at the opening ceremony." Ava blinked. "Me? You and Benny." Ava clutched her chest. "Really?" Mia nodded. "They said you inspired a lot of people. They want you to help welcome the next generation of rescues." Ava looked down at Benny, who was busy chewing on his duck toy, then back at her mom. "I want to do it," she said. "I want to show people that even the most broken ones can become the best ones." The day of the grand opening arrived. The new shelter was bright, welcoming, and full of life. Banners waved in the breeze. Children played on the grass. Dozens of rescued animals waited in shaded enclosures, tails wagging, eyes hopeful. A stage had been set up at the front, and rows of chairs were filled with families, donors, and volunteers. Ava walked up the steps, holding Benny's leash tightly. He trotted beside her with calm confidence, wearing a red bandana that said Rescue Ambassador. As the applause died down, Ava stood behind the microphone. She looked out over the crowd. Then down at Benny. He looked up at her. She began to speak. "I Found Benny on a rainy day. He was cold, hungry, and scared. He didn't trust me at first. And I didn't really know what I was doing. But something told me he needed me, so I stayed, I waited. Loved him through his silence and his shaking. And little by little ... he came back to life. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. Benny didn't just find a home. He found himself. He learned that humans can be kind. That food doesn't have to be stolen. That hands can be gentle. That love doesn't hurt. She looked at the rows of dogs and cats waiting for homes, and all of them, she said, deserve that same chance. People clapped, some cried, and Benny, sensing the emotion, nuzzled her leg. Ava looked down and smiled. He's not the same dog I found, and I'm not the same girl. We rescued each other. After the ceremony, people surrounded them with hugs and questions. Children asked if they could pet Benny. Adults shook Ava's hand and said they were inspired. That day, 8 animals were adopted on the spot. A new record. They called it the Benny Boom. Ava called it a blessing. That night, exhausted but happy, Ava crawled into bed with Benny curled at her feet. She flipped open her scrapbook. There, on the final page, she had drawn something new. A house with a wide yard. A girl and her dog. Both older, surrounded by animals. Above it all, she had written, "One day I'll open my own rescue. And every Benny will have a home." She showed it to Benny. He tilted his head, then gently pawed the page. "Yeah," she whispered. One day, years passed, seasons changed. Benny grew older. His fur turned gray around the muzzle. He walked a little slower, slept a little longer, but his eyes never lost their spark, and his love for Ava never dimmed. She still read to him every night, still sang to him when the thunder rolled, still told him he was the best dog in the whole world, because he was. And when the day finally came, many years later, when Benny's eyes closed for the last time, he wasn't alone. Ava held him, her tears falling into his fur, her voice steady and full of love. "You were my first story," she whispered, "my best story. You saved me." And Benny, even in those final breaths, understood, because love never needed words, only presence, only patience, only forever. Later, Ava stood in the yard where Benny had once chased butterflies. She held a tiny urn and placed it under the oak tree, their favorite spot. She hung his collar on a low branch where it clinked gently in the breeze. Mia stood beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "He had the best life," she whispered. Ava nodded. "And he gave me mine." Years later, Ava opened her own rescue, the Benny Foundation, a place for the forgotten. For the hungry, for the broken who only needed someone to stay. A place for the forgotten. For the forgotten. For the hungry, for the broken who only needed someone to stay. A place for the forgotten. For the someone to stay. Photo of Benny hung above the door. Smiling. Hopeful. Home. And below that photo, etched in silver, were the words, "I'm so hungry," the puppy cried. And the world answered, "Come home." The end. Autumn settled into the small town like a soft, golden blanket. Leaves turned amber and orange, swirling through the streets in playful gusts. The mornings grew crisper, the evenings darker. Children walked to school wrapped in scarves, and chimneys puffed gentle wisps of smoke. For Benny, it was his first experience with a real fall. He chased leaves in the backyard with the same wide-eyed wonder a child might have chasing fireflies. The air was full of new smells, earthy, smoky, sweet, and he would stop often, nose to the ground, tail wagging like a metronome. Ava laughed watching him, bundled in a fuzzy sweater, her breath visible in the morning air. "You're such a father's a fada," bundled in a fuzzy sweater, her breath visible in the morning air. "You're such a bull in the morning air." "Weirdo," she giggled as Benny pounced on a pile of leaves, sending them flying. But Benny didn't mind. He was home, safe, loved Dot, and this was what joy felt like. Ava's mom, Mia, watched them from the kitchen window. She had seen Benny transform over the past couple of months from a fragile, trembling creature to a bold, playful companion who followed Ava everywhere like her shadow. But she'd also seen changes in her daughter. Ava smiled more. She talked. More at school. She was more confident, more patient, more thoughtful. Benny hadn't just healed. He had helped Ava heal, too. The house felt more alive now. It buzzed with the rhythm of little paws on hardwood floors, bursts of laughter, shared silences, and moments of unexpected affection like Benny curling up against Mia's feet while she cooked or nudging his head into her side during movie nights. He had claimed them both. Not just Ava. The whole home. Still, some wounds were deeper than others. One night, a memory resurfaced. Ava had been asleep for hours when a loud bang echoed from the street, a car backfiring, sharp and sudden. Benny bolted upright in bed, eyes wide, heart pounding. It was the kind of sound that lived in the shadows of his memory, the kind of sound that meant danger, yelling, cold nights, and locked doors. He scrambled off the bed, hiding behind the curtain, shaking. Ava woke to the sound of his claws against the wall. Benny? She sat up, heart sinking as she saw him cowering. She got out of bed, crawled to him, and wrapped her arms around him without saying a word. They stayed there together, pressed between curtain and wall, the moonlight slipping in through the glass. "You're safe," she whispered eventually. "I promise." Benny let out a small whimper. Then, slowly, he pressed his forehead to hers. It wasn't that the past was gone, but here in her arms, it didn't own him anymore. The next day, Ava brought her journal to school. It was an assignment. Write about someone who changed your life. Most kids chose grandparents, older siblings, or teachers. Ava wrote about Benny. She titled her essay, "The Dog Who Found Me." "I thought I rescued him, but the truth is he rescued me first. I didn't know I needed saving until I saw him on the sidewalk, crying, so hungry he could barely stand. I didn't know love could be quiet and scared, or that healing could look like naps on the floor. Benny doesn't speak, but I hear him every day. He tells me I matter, that I'm enough, that even if someone throws you away, you can still be chosen again, that love, real love, is worth the wait." Her teacher cried reading it. So did the principal. So did Mia when Ava brought it home and read it out loud at the dinner table. Benny didn't understand the words, but he lay beside Ava, licking her toes as if to say, "Yes, that's exactly what I meant." Later that week, a letter arrived in the mail from the local library. "You've been chosen to read your essay at the fall community story night." Ava gasped. "Mom, they want me to speak in front of everyone." Mia looked at her, surprised. "Do you want to?" Ava hesitated. "I think I do." She looked down at Benny. He was sitting by her feet, tail wagging. "I want people to know about him." The evening of the event, the library was full. Families packed the seats. Children whispered and giggled between readings. Adults sipped cider from paper cups and clapped politely after each story. Then, Ava's name was called. She walked nervously to the microphone, holding her journal tight. Mia gave her a thumbs up. Benny, sitting quietly on a blanket beside the front row, watched with wide, trusting eyes. Ava took a deep breath, then began to read. Her voice shook at first, but sentence by sentence, it grew stronger. She read about the rainy day when she found Benny, about the blanket, the sandwich, the shelter, about the healing, the nights by his side, the way he still flinched sometimes but kept trying anyway. And finally, she read, "I used to think broken things couldn't be fixed, but Benny isn't broken. He's brave. And now, so am I." The room was silent when she finished. Then the applause began, soft at first, Then louder. People stood. Some clapped with tears in their eyes. Others simply nodded, their hearts full. And Benny? He barked. Once, proudly, a small bark. A brave bark, the sound of a soul who had found his voice. After the event, people came to thank her. One woman said, "Your story reminded me of the dog I lost. I think I'm ready to try again." Another whispered, "My daughter's been struggling. I think a rescue dog might help." Children knelt to pet Benny, calling him a hero. He didn't understand the attention, but he accepted it with grace-licking cheeks, wagging tails, leaning into every kind hand. That night, as Mia tucked Ava into bed, she kissed her forehead and whispered, "You were amazing." Ava grinned sleepily. Benny was amazing. Mia nodded. "You both were." The seasons changed again. Thanksgiving came. Then Christmas. Then a new year. Benny experienced snow for the first time. He wasn't sure at first. Cold, wet, confusing. But once Ava made a snowball and tossed it across the yard, he bounded after it with glee. He had a stocking above the fireplace, wrapped toys under the tree, even a tiny birthday party in February. When the vet guessed he had turned one, Ava made him a cake out of peanut butter and oats. He wore a silly hat and posed for photos. Mia laughed watching them. "He doesn't even know it's his birthday," Ava grinned. "Maybe, but he knows we love him." And he did, more and more with every passing day. One night, curled up in her bed, Ava whispered to Benny, "You're not just my dog, you know." He lifted his head. "You're my story," she said. "The one I'll tell forever." And Benny? He nudged her hand gently with his nose, because he knew. The days turned into weeks. Little by little, Benny's world became brighter, safer, and fuller than he had ever known before. Each morning began the same. As sunlight filtered through Ava's bedroom window, it would fall gently across the soft blanket where Benny lay curled. He would lift his head, blinking at the light, then roll over to face Ava. She always slept on her side, clutching her pillow, her hair a tangled mess, and her breathing soft. Then she'd stir, yawn, and open one eye, always to find Benny watching her with his tail thumping lazily against the floor. "Morning, Benny," she'd whisper, stretching out her hand, and he'd nuzzle it, closing his eyes in contentment. No barking, no crying, just quiet joy. The kind that grows in a place where love lives. Benny was stronger now. His fur was shinier. His ribs, once painfully visible, were filling out. The vet had given him a glowing report. "He's a whole new dog," Dr. Keller had said. "Still needs patience, of course. But he's healthy, and more importantly, he's happy." Ava had beamed out. Mia had cried. And Benny? He had tried to eat the vet's stethoscope. The neighborhood came to know him by name. Children waved as he passed by on walks. Store owners left out water bowls on hot days. He had his own little fan club. But most of all, Benny had Ava. Their bond was something deep, quiet, and uncheckable. She told him all her secrets. He followed her everywhere. When she read books in her room, he lay beside her with his head on her foot. When she played piano, he sat by her bench, tail tapping to the rhythm. They were never apart, not even for a moment. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Ava and Mia took Benny to the town square. It was the local Adopt a Pet Awareness Day, an event hosted by Sunridge Animal Rescue, the same group that had saved Benny. Booths were set up with banners, flyers, water bowls, and handmade signs that read, "Give them a second chance." Benny sat proudly beside Ava in a blue harness with a tag that read, "Rescued." A few of the shelter workers recognized him. "Is that Benny?" one woman gasped. "Oh my goodness, look at him." Another bent down to stroke his ears. "I remember when he wouldn't lift his head off the blanket. Now look at this confident little guy." Benny wagged his tail and licked her hand. calm and friendly. Ava stood tall beside him. He's not scared anymore. The event was full of families looking for a pet, volunteers helping animals find homes, children running between booths asking their parents, "Can we keep this one?" Ava watched with wide eyes. Some animals were older. Some were shy. Some barked excitedly when people came near, others hid in their crates. And in every corner of the event was one silent hope: "Please choose me." Ava gently squeezed Benny's harness. "They just need someone, don't they?" Mia nodded. "Just like Benny needed you." Ava looked up. "Can we help someone else today?" Mia smiled. "Maybe we can." They walked past each booth, stopping to read about every dog and cat. Ava was drawn to a cage where a gray, three-legged cat sat calmly watching the crowd. "What's his name?" she asked. "Marble," the volunteer said. "Lost a leg in an accident. Sweet boy, just shy. Does anyone want him?" The woman hesitated. "Not yet." Ava knelt in front of Marble and whispered, "Someone will. You're perfect." "Benny." Stepped closer, sniffed the cage gently, then wagged his tail. Marble rubbed his nose against the bars in return. The volunteer laughed. "I think your pup approves." Later that afternoon, there was a short ceremony. Sunridge Rescue was honoring families who had adopted animals from them. Mia was surprised when they called Ava's name. "Please welcome one of our youngest and most compassionate adopters, Ava Mason, who gave Benny not just a home, but a heart full of love." Applause followed. Ava blushed furiously. Benny barked once, tail wagging hard. He didn't understand the stage or the people, but he understood Ava. She knelt beside him, hugged him tight, and whispered, "We did it." And in that moment, Benny felt something deep. In his chest, pride, not just in himself, but in her, because she had saved him. And he knew. Somehow, he had saved her too. As the sun began to set and the crowd thinned, Ava and Mia packed up to leave. They said goodbye to the shelter staff, gave one last treat to Marble the cat, and headed home. The car ride was quiet, peaceful. Benny rested his chin on Ava's leg and sighed deeply. He had walked through darkness, through hunger, through fear. But now he had made it. This was what it felt like to belong. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. Not because she was upset, but because she couldn't stop smiling. She lay in bed, thinking about all the animals she had seen, all the cages, all. The hopeful eyes, and she whispered into the darkness, "One day, I'll help them all. Just like I helped Benny." Benny, curled up beside her, lifted his head at the sound of her voice. Then he pressed his nose against her hand, and together they drifted into dreams. The next morning brought a surprise. While eating breakfast, Mia opened the front door and found a small envelope on the porch. It was from Sunridge Rescue. Inside was a certificate, a paw print stamp, and a note. "Dear Ava, you reminded us what rescue really means, not just saving a life, but changing one. Benny's journey inspires us all. Thank you for being his hero, Sunridge Animal Rescue Team." Ava held the certificate in both hands, tears in her eyes. Mia framed it and hung it in Ava's room, right above Benny's bed. Every time he looked at it, his tail would wag. As if he knew it meant something big, something beautiful, something worth fighting for. But life wasn't perfect. Some days Benny still got scared. One evening, a thunderstorm rolled in unexpectedly. The sky rumbled with sound and rain pounded against the windows. Benny bolted under the couch, trembling uncontrollably. Ava spent an hour coaxing him out, whispering gently, offering his duck toy, and finally just sitting beside him with a blanket. "It's okay," she said. "It's just rain. I'm here." Slowly, inch by inch, he crept into her lap and buried his head in her arms. "You're safe," she whispered again and again. She didn't try to fix him. She just loved him through it. And sometimes that was all he needed. A week later, a small article appeared in the local newspaper. Girl and her rescue. Dog inspired town's kindness movement. It had a photo of Ava and Benny at the adoption fair, smiling. Well, Ava smiling Benny looked like he was trying to lick the camera. Article talked about the bond they shared, how Ava had never given up on him, how Benny had grown into a symbol of second chances. Strangers began leaving notes in their mailbox. You and Benny reminded me to adopt, not shop. We brought home a rescue cat because of your story. Thank you for believing in him. And slowly, Ava realized something. Saving one life can spark 1,000 more. That weekend, Ava asked her mom, "Can we volunteer at the shelter?" Mia smiled. Of course. They signed up for weekly visits cleaning cages, feeding animals, playing with them. Benny came too, each time more confident, walking proudly past the crates like a little ambassador. Sometimes, scared dogs would growl or bark, but Benny didn't bark back. He would sit near them, quiet and still like he was, saying, "I know. I've been there too." And sometimes they would calm down, not because of treats, not because of toys, but because they felt understood. By the end of the month, the shelter had more adoptions than ever. People said it was the Benny effect. But Benny didn't care about that. He just cared about his duck, his girl, and his home. The door of the shelter creaked open, and the sunlight poured in like a promise. Benny, no longer just the puppy, stood uncertainly in the arms of the rescue worker, wrapped snugly in a clean, cozy blanket. He was still thin, his ribs still visible beneath the fur, but there was life in his eyes now, a sparkle. A light that had almost gone out but had begun, slowly, to return. He was going home. His home. The little girl Ava waited beside her mother, near the shelter entrance, bouncing on her toes with excitement. The moment Benny saw her, his tail wagged with a shaky rhythm, uncertain but eager. Ava let out a squeal of joy and rushed to meet him. The rescue worker smiled as she passed Benny into Ava's arms. "Be gentle. He's still healing." "I will," Ava promised, clutching the tiny dog against her chest. Benny buried his nose into the crook of her neck. Her scent familiar, warm and safe, wrapped around him like another blanket. His body relaxed completely, trusting her, choosing her. "You ready to take care of him?" The shelter worker asked. Ava nodded solemnly. Yes, forever. The ride home was quiet, peaceful. Benny sat in Ava's lap, occasionally lifting his head to look out the window, ears perked but not anxious. Every now and then, Ava stroked his fur and whispered to him, "It's okay now. No more cold nights, no more scary noises. You're home." Ava's mother, Mia, glanced at them in the rearview mirror and smiled. She had her concerns, of course. Benny was fragile, and taking care of him would be a big responsibility. But watching the two of them together, how gentle Ava was. How trusting Benny had become. She knew it was right. They weren't just saving him. He was saving something in them, too. Their house wasn't big, but it was filled with warmth. The living room had soft rugs and sunlit windows. The kitchen always smelled like cinnamon or fresh bread. And Ava's room, where Benny would sleep, was a small world of plush animals, books, and bright colors. Ava gently placed Benny on a blanket-lined dog bed beside her own. "This is yours," she said. "You don't ever have to leave." Benny circled once, then twice, then flopped down with a soft sigh. It wasn't much, but it was his. For the first time in his life, he had something of his own. But recovery wasn't easy. That night, Benny woke up whining in his sleep. His paws twitched, his ears flattened, and he let out a whimper so sad it brought tears to Ava's eyes. She climbed out of bed and lay beside him on the floor. "It's just a dream," she whispered. "You're not alone." She stayed like that for hours, her hand resting on his back. Until his breathing calmed. The next morning, Mia took Benny to their local vet for a follow-up. Dr. Keller was a tall, kind woman with gentle hands and a voice that made even the most frightened animals feel calm. "Well, Benny," she said after the checkup, "you're still underweight, but you're healing. And you've got a fighter spirit." She showed Ava how to give Benny his medications, vitamins, ointment for his paws, and special food that wouldn't upset his stomach. He might have some tummy troubles for a while, she said. His body's still learning what it feels like to be full again. Ava listened carefully, nodding at every instruction. "I'll do it, all of it." Mia watched her daughter with quiet pride. Over the next week, Benny slowly learned what it meant to be safe. At first, he wouldn't eat unless Ava sat beside him. He'd glance nervously around the room, as if expecting someone to snatch his food away. But when he realized no one would, he began to eat more eagerly. He was still cautious with loud sounds, the blender, the vacuum, thunder, but with every passing day, the fear faded a little more. Ava taught him how to play. At first, he didn't understand what toys were. He would sniff them, confused, then walk away. But one day, she gently tossed a small stuffed duck across the rug. "Get it." "Benny." He tilted his head, curious. Then, after a long pause, he trotted toward it and picked it up in his mouth. When Ava clapped and cheered, he wagged his tail wildly. From then on, the duck never left his side. But while his body was healing, the emotional scars ran deeper. One afternoon, a stranger came to the door. Mia's friend, dropping off a casserole. She laughed loudly and stepped toward Benny to pet him. He froze. His ears flattened. Then he ran. Not far, just under the table, but his entire body shook. No matter how much Ava called to him, he wouldn't come out. It took an hour for him to feel safe again. Later, Ava asked, "Why is he scared of people who are loud?" Mia gently explained, "We don't know everything he's been through, but maybe someone loud hurt him before." Ava looked at her dog, curled up beside the duck toy. "Then I'll never yell, ever, not even a little." Mia kissed her forehead. "That's very kind of you. But remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Just be patient with him. Let him learn that people can be kind too." As Benny settled into his new life, the neighborhood began to notice. Mrs. Sanders, who lived next door, brought over homemade treats for him. "He's such a good boy," she said. "I remember the first week. He looked so scared. But now look at him, he's glowing." Children from the street would stop by to pet him through the fence. Ava always asked them to be gentle, and Benny began to trust them slowly but surely. One boy, Liam, even offered to give Benny his old chew toys. "My dog passed away last year," he said quietly. "I think she'd like him to have these." Ava thanked him, and together they placed the toys in Benny's basket. Still, the nights were hardest. There were moments when Benny would suddenly cower from shadows or whimper in his sleep. Sometimes he'd wake up pacing, as if searching for something that wasn't there. No matter how peaceful the day had been, the ghosts of his past returned with the moonlight, but Ava never scolded him. She'd sit beside him, whisper stories, or sing softly until he calmed down. "It's okay," she'd say, holding his head in her lap. "You're not back there. You're here, with me." And in those moments, Benny believed her. One afternoon, as they walked through the park, Benny, off-leash for the very first time, something beautiful happened. A small flock of birds scattered from a tree, flapping wildly. Benny froze at the sound, but then he didn't run. He looked back at Ava, tail high, ears perked. "You're okay." Ava laughed. And then he did something he had never done before. He barked. Just once. Loud and proud. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't a whimper. It was a joyful, fearless bark, a declaration. "I'm not afraid anymore." Ava ran to him, threw her arms around his neck, and they tumbled into the grass laughing. That night, as the stars came out and Benny lay curled at the foot of Ava's bed, Mia stood in the doorway watching them. "You've done a good thing," she whispered. Ava looked up. "He saved me too, you know." Mia raised a brow. "Oh, I used to feel lonely," Ava admitted, "since Daddy left." "I didn't tell you, but I did." Mia's face softened. "But now," Ava continued, "I don't feel alone anymore. I have Benny. He listens to me. He understands." Mia walked over, kissed the top of her daughter's head, and tucked the blanket around her. "He's lucky to have you." "No," Ava whispered sleepily, hugging Benny tight. "I'm lucky to have him." Outside, the wind blew gently through the trees. The moonlight bathed the house in silver. And inside, on a small bed next to a little girl who had once whispered, "He's just a baby," Benny slept soundly. No nightmares that night. No crying. No hunger. Just peace, and the soft rhythm of two hearts healing together. The little puppy stirred at the sound of the voice, soft, high-pitched, and full of concern. His ears twitched. He had been drifting in and out of sleep, his body too weak to stay fully conscious. Every part of him hurt. His paws were raw. His ribs ached, and his belly was nothing but a hollow drum that hadn't been full in days. But this voice was different. "Mommy, look at him. He's hurt." Small fingers brushed gently against his muddy fur. He flinched, unsure whether it would be a slap or a kick. But it wasn't. It was warm, careful, kind. A woman's voice followed, slightly distant. "Oh no, sweetie, don't touch him. He might be sick." "But he's a baby," the little girl said, not moving away. "He's hungry." The puppy didn't have the strength to wag his tail, but he did open one eye. The world was blurry at first, shapes melting together. But slowly, the outline of a child kneeling in front of him came into focus. She looked about 7 or 8. Her hair pulled into a ponytail, her eyes big and brown. He could see the reflection of himself in those eyes, small, dirty, pitiful. Still, she didn't look away. The girl turned to her mother. "Can we feed him, please?" The woman hesitated. "We don't know where he's been." The puppy let out a small whimper. He didn't understand their words, but he understood tone. He knew when someone was about to walk away. He forced himself up on trembling legs, took 2 shaky steps forward, and sat down. His back legs collapsed beneath him, but he raised his head as high as he could. His eyes locked onto the mother's, silently pleading. "Please don't go." The girl pointed excitedly. "Mommy, look, he's asking." The woman knelt, her eyes now softening. "Oh, sweetheart." She looked around the street. No collar, no leash, no owner. Just a broken, starving little dog. She sighed. "Okay, wait here." She disappeared into the bakery. The smells from inside made the puppy's nose twitch. His stomach growled so loudly the girl giggled. "Don't worry," she whispered. "We'll get you something." Moments later, the woman returned with a small paper bag. She handed it to her daughter, who opened it eagerly and pulled out a plain sandwich roll. She broke it in half and offered it. The puppy sniffed it, licked it once, then took the softest bite he could manage. He chewed slowly, like his jaw had forgotten how. Crumbs stuck to his lips, but he didn't care. It was food, real food. The little girl smiled wide. "He's eating." The puppy ate the entire roll bite by bite, carefully, as if he was afraid it might disappear. He licked the girl's fingers when he was done, not for more food, but to say thank you. "What do we do now?" the girl asked. The mother looked uncertain. "We can't just leave him here. But we can't take him home either, not like this." She pulled out her phone and stepped away, making a call. The puppy curled back down, his belly slightly less empty now. He felt the warmth of the sun on his fur and the girl's presence beside him. For the first time in days, the pain faded just enough for him to close his eyes and breathe. The woman returned and crouched beside them. I called the shelter. They said they'll come pick him up. They'll take care of him. The girl frowned. Can't we take care of him? I know you want to, her mom said gently, but he's sick and he needs help. We don't even know if he'll make it through the night. The puppy lifted his head again at the sound of her voice. He didn't know what a shelter was, but he knew what it felt like when people turned away. The woman didn't seem like she would, not yet. Can we stay with him until they come? The girl asked. Her mom nodded. So they sat there together, one girl, one dog, and one worried mother. The street bustled behind them, but in that moment, the puppy felt safe. A little stronger. A little less invisible. Half an hour later, a white van pulled up with a logo on the side that read, Sunridge Animal Rescue. A woman with gentle eyes stepped out, carrying a soft blue blanket. The puppy stirred nervously. It's okay, the bakery mom said. They'll take care of you. The little girl wrapped her arms around him carefully. Don't be scared, she whispered. They're nice. The rescue worker knelt. Hey, buddy, she said softly. You've had a rough time, huh? The puppy didn't resist as she wrapped him in the blanket and lifted him into her arms. He was so light. Too light. He's just skin and bones, the woman murmured. But he's lucky you found him. The little girl sniffled. Will he be okay? We'll do everything we can, the worker promised as they closed the van door. The puppy looked through the window at the girl. She waved, tears in her eyes. Bye, puppy. I love you. He didn't know what the words meant, but in her voice he heard something he hadn't heard in a long time. Hope. Inside the van, the rescue worker placed him gently on a padded bed and checked his vitals. She spoke softly to him the whole time, as if he were already hers. You're gonna need fluids, little guy. And food. Lots of food. But don't worry, we've got that. You're not alone anymore. He closed his eyes, too tired to respond. But for the first time since he had been abandoned, he felt something stir in his chest, a quiet flicker. Like the glow of a fire just beginning to burn. At the shelter, things moved quickly. He was weighed, examined, and gently cleaned. A needle gave him much-needed fluids. The vet frowned as she examined his condition: severely underweight, inflamed gums, infected paw pads, signs of abuse. But she didn't give up on him. This little one's a fighter, she said. Barely holding on, but he hasn't quit yet. The puppy slept for hours, waking only when food was placed near him. He ate slowly but didn't leave a single bite behind. Over the next few days, the staff took turns sitting with him. They talked to him, sang to him, sometimes just kept him company. They named him Benny, short for Benito, which meant blessed, because they all agreed he was lucky to have survived. He was still weak, still thin, but each day he stood a little steadier. His eyes became brighter. His tail, after days of hanging limp, wagged once. When a nurse brought his dinner, it was a tiny thing, but everyone cheered. Back at the bakery, the little girl never stopped thinking about him. Mom, do you think they fixed him yet? Her mother smiled. He's not a toy, honey. But yes, I think they're helping him. Can we go see him? Maybe, if he's strong enough. She checked the shelter's website every day with her daughter. Then one morning, they saw a new post. Meet Benny, from the streets to a second chance. There was a photo of him, wrapped in a blanket, his eyes sleepy but calm. That's him, the girl shouted. That's my puppy. Her mother smiled. He does look better. Below the photo was a line that made her heart skip. Benny will be ready for adoption soon. He's still recovering, but he's full of love and looking for a forever home. The girl turned to her mom, eyes wide. Can our home be his forever home? The woman hesitated. Then she said, let's go visit. Him at the shelter, Benny was napping when the door opened. He opened one eye, expecting a nurse. But then, a smell. Familiar. He sat up slowly, and there she was, the girl. She ran to the cage. Benny. He stood on wobbly legs, tail wagging fast. A yip escaped his throat. Not fear this time, but joy. The staff smiled. He remembers you. The girls. Mom asked, "Is he ready to come home?" The vet nodded. He still needs rest, but with love, he'll heal even faster. And so, Benny's journey, once marked by pain and hunger, took a new turn. Not just rescued, but chosen.love.home. The sun was just starting to set behind the hills when the little brown puppy was pushed out of the car. At first, he thought it was just a quick stop. He wagged his tiny tail, excited for the walk or playtime he believed was coming. He didn't know how long he had been in the car. Hours, maybe. His paws ached from being cramped, and his stomach growled, but none of that mattered. His humans were here. His tail wagged harder. The door closed behind him. The engine rumbled. He tilted, his head curious. Maybe they forgot something? Then the car began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. Then it disappeared around the bend in the road. The puppy stood there, confused. His ears perked up, waiting for the sound of the engine returning. It didn't. The trees around him swayed in the wind. The air was getting cooler, and the shadows grew longer as night crept in. He sat down on the side of the road, staring in the direction the car had gone. They'll come back, he thought. They always come back. He waited for hours. A fly buzzed near his ear. He shook his head, then lay down in the dirt, curling his small body to stay warm. The road was empty, except for the occasional car that sped past. None stopped. Each one made his heart jump. He would lift his head, ears alert, eyes wide. Was it them? No, never them. As the night grew darker, so did the loneliness. He whimpered softly, but there was no one to hear him. By morning, the puppy was cold and stiff. Dew clung to his fur, and his nose was dry. He hadn't eaten since the day before, not that he had eaten much then, either. A few bites of dry food tossed onto a cracked floor. It had been getting harder to eat lately. The man in the house had stopped feeding him regularly. Some days he was yelled at for whining near the kitchen door. Other times he was kicked out of the way when he wagged his tail for attention, but he had still believed they loved him, even when they forgot to fill his bowl. Even when they shut him out in the rain, because that's what puppies do. They love. No matter what. Now, alone in the wilderness near a highway, the puppy had no house to return to, no door to scratch, no familiar smell of the torn couch he used to nap on. He started to walk, not knowing where he was going, only that he had to find someone, anyone. His little paws were soft, unused to the rough gravel. They began to bleed, but he didn't stop. Hunger gnawed at his belly. It was a sharp, twisting pain, making him weak and dizzy. He sniffed the ground, hoping for food, but there was nothing. An hour passed. Then another. A car slowed near him. He perked up, tail wagging with sudden hope, but it wasn't them. A window rolled down. A man leaned out, throwing something. The puppy dashed forward. Was it food? No. It was a can. It hit the ground near him with a loud clang, making him yelp and scurry back. The car sped away, leaving only laughter behind. The puppy didn't understand. Why had they done that? He crept forward and sniffed the can. Empty. Still, he licked it, desperate for even the smallest taste. Nothing. The sun climbed high in the sky. The road shimmered with heat. The puppy stumbled into a nearby ditch, shaded slightly by dry grass. He curled up again, too tired to move. Flies buzzed around his ears and the cuts on his paws. His eyes fluttered, Heavy from exhaustion. In his dreams, he saw the girl from the house. She had once giggled when he chased a tennis ball. She used to sneak him bits of bread under the table. Her face in the dream was kind. He whimpered in his sleep, imagining her scooping him up and saying, "There you are." I've been looking everywhere. But when he woke, she was gone. Just like the others. That evening, he found a trash bin behind a gas station. The smell was strong, rotten, and sour, but it made his mouth water. He climbed onto a tipped-over bucket and stuck his head inside. A sandwich wrapper, a chicken bone, a moldy apple. He pulled out the bone and gnawed at it hungrily, even though it hurt his teeth. A sharp edge scraped his gums, but he didn't care. He was so hungry, he would eat anything. A man came out the back door of the gas station shouting, "Get out of here, you mutt!" The puppy dropped the bone and ran. His heart pounded. His paws screamed with pain. He didn't stop until he reached the other side of the street. Hiding behind a pile of old tires, tears welled in his eyes. Why didn't anyone want him? Why was everyone so angry? All he wanted was to be loved, to be fed, to feel safe. He licked his paw gently, tasting blood, and then he curled up again, trying to sleep through the pain. The next day brought more wandering. He followed the scent of food through back alleys. Sometimes he saw other dogs, older, stronger, meaner. They barked at him, chased him off, guarding their scraps. So he stayed in the shadows. Quiet, careful. His ribs were showing now. His belly hung empty, making sad noises as he walked. His tail no longer wagged. His ears drooped. His once shiny coat was matted with mud and dirt. Still, he searched. Every minute of every day, he searched. For food. For kindness. For someone to see him. To really see him. That night, it rained. Hard. The puppy crawled beneath a rusty fence and huddled against the back of a dumpster. The wind howled. Thunder cracked the sky. Water poured from the heavens, soaking him through. He shivered violently, coughing between whimpers. He cried out, louder this time, not just from the cold, not just from the hunger, but from the deep, aching sadness in his chest. "I'm so hungry." He whimpered softly. Over and over, "I'm so hungry." But there was no one to answer. Morning came, and with it, the sun. But it didn't bring warmth, only heat that burned his paws on the pavement. His eyes stung from the brightness. His legs barely moved. He was losing strength, losing hope. As he made his way to the edge of a small town, he spotted a bench outside a bakery. The smell was too much to resist. Fresh bread, sweet rolls, meat pies. He sat there, trembling, staring through the glass. People came and went. Some glanced at him. Most didn't, single quotes. One woman muttered, "Dirty thing, shouldn't be near food." He didn't move. He couldn't. "I'm so hungry," he whispered again, too weak to bark now. One of the workers came out with a broom and shooed him away. "Go on, get." He stood up slowly, his bones aching. He walked a few steps, then collapsed near the corner of the building, his eyes half closed. His breath came slow. If this was the end, he just wished it wouldn't hurt so much. He wished it had been different. He wished someone had loved him, but even in the darkest moment, a pair of small shoes approached. They stopped beside him. Then a voice, soft, kind, and full of worry. "Mommy, he's just a baby." And for the first time in days, he felt seen.